Okay, so for this chapter, we're going to talk about parallel structure. And again, this is from my book, Overcoming ACT English, which is available on TPT and also on Amazon. So, with parallel structure, that's just a fancy way basically of saying that items in a list need to match. You're usually gonna see this talked about with verbs, like verb tenses. So, like for example, these are all correct examples because when you see the three verbs that are listed, they're all in the same tense. Like they all end in ed here: talked, played, danced. The same thing over here when they're talking in present tense, like talk, play, and dance. Talking, playing, dancing, like they all match. Like they're all the ing version. You can also have it with not just verbs, but with nouns. Like in most American school, in most, oh, that's supposed to say most American schools are known for their inadequacy, inefficiency, and lack of resources. I will fix that. But basically, if this were to say most American schools are known for their inadequacy, inefficiency, and lack of resources, those would be the three like nouns that are listed, and they're each like a noun, so they all match. Like you couldn't have like different things like a noun, a verb, and then a noun, for instance, because those don't match. Now, if you look at the wrong examples, it's wrong to say the children talked, played, and were swimming during the party because, see, those don't match. Like up here, they match. They all ended in ed. Here, it's talked, played, and were swimming. You're mixing up your tenses, which you can't do. They all need to be in the same verb tense. And then over here, again, let's pretend it said most American schools. Most American schools are known for their inadequacy, inefficiency, and lacking resources. Lacking resources, that's giving us a verb versus these two, which are nouns. So you're switching it up. You can't do that. They all have to match. Another thing that confuses students, and also like, I know it's weird because it's grammar and you think like grammar would always have like the same rules, but there's some debate with certain grammar things. But for the purposes of this exam, you don't need, so if you have an auxiliary verb, like sometimes they're called helping verbs by your teachers, like right here we have will, like we're saying will, talk, and play. You can choose whether or not to repeat that. Like these are both correct. It's correct to say will talk and play and will talk and will play. Those are still both showing like parallel structure because we're still using the same verb tense. It's not necessary to use the helping verb again, but we can if we want to. Now, sometimes you'll be asked to check for parallel structure with multiple sentences. So again, it's just matching, but instead of like matching in a list of things, it's matching sentences and their how they're formed basically. So for instance, in this example, it says the night sky comes alive with vibrant hues painting a mesmerizing canvas as stargazers gather below. A whisper of reverence spreads through the crowd as the colors intensify, capturing the moment photographers stand under the northern lights. So the bolded portion right here, this sentence, capturing the moment photographers stand under the northern lights, we're being asked about that. Which choice best maintains the style established earlier in the paragraph? So the style established earlier in the paragraph says like the night sky comes alive. So it's a noun followed by verb. And then the next sentence is a whisper of reverence, noun, followed by verb spread. So we want noun verb. Here we're starting with a verb, which we don't want. That's not keeping and maintaining the style that's been established earlier in the paragraph. We want noun plus verb to start it off so that it matches. So it definitely is not going to be no change. So then let's look for noun followed by verb. Under the spell of the northern lights, no. Photographers capture, noun followed by verb. Captured by photographers, no, that's verb starting it. So it would have to be C is the only one that maintains that noun verb pattern. So now let's try this parallel structure quiz 1. Again, if you have this resource, I recommend doing it on your own first and then doing your corrections on your own to the best of your ability. And then if you get stuck, coming back to this video for explanations. So right here, we're being asked about this bolded portion. And I'm going to just read the whole sentence. To witness the northern lights in their full glory, one should head to areas close to the magnetic poles, such as northern Canada, Alaska, or heading to Scandinavia. So here we have a verb, noun, noun. We don't want that. We want to have everything matching. So we need to definitely cross out no change. It can't be that. So let's see what which of our options is going to be just like either noun, 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 or verb, verb, verb. Like it has to match basically and fit in the context. So I see right over here, that's verbs mixing with nouns for B. Same thing for D, so it can't be those, but C is noun, 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 so that works. So now let's look at number 2. So it's referring to this bolded portion. Despite the cold temperatures, visitors lie down on the snow, gazed upwards at the stars, and hoped to catch a glimpse of this mesmerizing light show. So we have lie, like lie down, gazed, and hope. So that's mixing up verb tenses, which we don't want. Remember the verb tenses, it can't just be that it's all verbs, it has to be the verb tenses match also. So it can't be that one. So then let's look and see which other ones might be mixing up tenses so we can automatically eliminate those. So C says lie, gaze, and hoping. So automatically I see I can cross that one out. And then, yeah, that one was still lie. Like those are all ending in ED for B. Lie down, gaze, hope. So these are all the same verb tense for B and D in their respective answer choices. So now what I'm going to do, since these are all matching the same verb tense, now this is testing me not just on parallel structure, but what's the correct verb tense for the context. So I need to read a little bit above and usually a little bit below if there was more below, just to be safe. And I have to figure out what's the context. Am I supposed to be using present tense or past tense? While the northern lights are visible from late September to early April, the best time for viewing is in the winter because of the longer periods of darkness and the frequency of clear nights. Tourists from around the world travel to these remote areas, not just for the visual spectacle, but also for the tranquility it brings to the human soul. Despite the cold temperatures, visitors, and then we have to decide, is it present or past tense right now? So they're talking in present tense when they're talking about like the tourists, like they travel here and all of that. So this needs to be present tense, not past tense. We're not referring to like a time in the past or anything like that. So it would have to be D. Now let's go to this next one. It says, which choice best maintains the style and tone established earlier in the paragraph? So like this is like the last example that we did before we went to the quiz, where you're checking like the structure, like the style of the sentences. Do they match? And usually it's going to be noun, verb, noun, verb, noun, verb, or something like that, where it's like how they all start. So a freshman steps, so noun, verb. A roommate extends, noun, verb. And then this is while fumbling with a map. So that's not immediately starting with a noun, then a verb. We want to have something with a noun, then a verb. So let's look for an option that has that. The only option that has a noun followed directly by a verb would be D. Okay, so now let's do parallel structure quiz number 2. Again, attempt this on your own first if you have these materials, and then I would suggest attempting corrections on your own before coming back to this video for explanations if needed for the best results. Now, we have number 1 is referring to the underlined portion there. Which choice most effectively maintains the pattern the writer established in the essay's first three sentences? So let's read the first 3 sentences. Pebbles crunch beneath a farmer's boot. The sound of chirping birds mixes with distant city horns. James Thomas cultivates tomatoes and basil on a city rooftop. So here we have noun, verb, noun, verb, noun, followed by verb. Laura Smith is growing organic lettuce on a balcony. So that is noun, verb with the is growing part. So that could work, but let's just make sure that there's not any other ones that follow the noun, verb pattern. So B and C automatically don't follow that pattern, but the answer choice D right here does follow the noun verb pattern. So now we have to determine, is the better choice answer choice A, like no change, keeping it as is, or answer choice D. So I see that all the verbs in the previous sentences, like crunch, mixes, cultivates, are all in like the regular simple present tense. So there's no like basically like is growing. It's not saying like is mixing. It's not saying is crunching. It's not saying is cultivating or anything like that. Like they're all just in the regular simple present tense. So the best answer choice would be D, to match that verb tense as well. So this one's not really like a parallel structure question. It was just kind of like I put it here just to like make sure that students knew, just because like you don't have you have commas doesn't mean that it's necessarily like a parallel structure type of question. So this one says that we're determining whether like number 9 should be as is, which like would just be keep it as to produce or change it to one of these. So it says Jack North, a hydroponics enthusiast, to produce leafy greens in vertical farms showcased in his tutorial Urban Towers. No, absolutely not. That's not like a complete sentence that makes sense. So no, it cannot be no change for sure. So right away, I see that I have a non-essential clause right here. And remember, we talked about that in the punctuation chapter. If you need to go back to that video to get a review of that, where I'm talking about non-essential clauses, go and watch that video. But essentially, we could cross out this information as non-essential and still, and we should still have a complete sentence if we had the correct version of whatever's supposed to go there. Because this non-essential clause is just like an extra interruption, an interruption of just like extra information that we don't necessarily mean or need. I cannot talk today, sorry. So we don't necessarily need to know he's a hydroponics enthusiast. It's just like that extra information that they're giving us in between commas, or it could have also been like em dashes instead of commas or parentheses. So right after that non-essential information, we should have a verb following that matches the subject, Jack North. So it should be Jack North and then like the verb, which you wouldn't say like Jack North to produce, even though produce is a verb. That's just not gonna match the subject that we have right here, Jack North. We would say produces would be the one that matches. Jack North produces leafy greens, because producer would be like a noun. And then we don't have like a verb there to make it a complete sentence. And then producing would have to be something like is producing or something along those lines in order for it to work in the context of even just that sentence. So it can't be D, it has to be B. So for this one, we're referring to number 12 right over here, basically. So we have to determine if that's correct or not. So artifacts from the Green City platform have been exhibited in London's Eco Museum, in Naturescape in Sydney, and San Francisco's Earth Lab. So look right here how this and this match. London's Eco Museum and San Francisco's Earth Lab. It's like a city's name with an apostrophe S followed by like a noun of a place that they're talking about. That does not match right here what it says for number 12. We need it to be like a city's name, apostrophe S, followed by like the place. So the only one that matches would be G.